Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Built for the Stage podcast. This is Joe Roscoe, founder and host of Built for the Stage, Broadway's #1 fitness platform. With clients in over 20 Broadway shows, the West End, and all over the world, really. We have clients in Tokyo Disney, Australia, collegiate theaters across the country. We are your one-stop shop for all things fitness and theater. If you want to try out a free trial where you're working with me on a one-on-one interactive fitness app, you can go to builtforthestage.com and try out your own Broadway fitness program for free. No cost, no catch, no gimmicks. Builtforthestage.com. All right, let's get on to our special guest. Special guest, as always, coming to us from the cast of the new revival of Revival. It sounds silly saying it because it's a classic that's been done forever, but this classic has quite the twist, and we're excited to chat with our guest about it. So again, they're in the cast of Romeo and Juliet on the B-Way. It's our guest Broadway debut. They're a Korean American actor from a small town in Ohio. I'm actually from a small town in Ohio as well, so I'm excited to chat with our guest about that. They went to Ohio University for their BFA in acting, home of the Bobcats. Here they do some partying there during the Halloween time. It is October 21st, so we could chat a little bit about that, with our guest as well. Yeah, let's just bring them on, chat it up, have a good time like we always do on Built for Stage podcast. Please welcome Timothy O, aka TT. What's up, my friend?
How you doing, brother? It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, OHIO. So let's jump in right there. Where are you from in Ohio?
I am from Northeast Ohio, a little tiny farm town called Chardon, Ohio. Chardon.
Chardon, Ohio. I'm from a little town in Northeast Ohio called Canfield, which is a suburb of Youngstown.
Uh-huh. Holy
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
Wow.
So yeah. If you ever drive home, I'm sure you take 80 West, that straight shot in Pennsylvania, cross over Pennsylvania, and there you are into Ohio, getting closer and closer to the family.
Wow.
Have you been back to Ohio recently to visit anybody?
The last time I went back to Ohio was I saw my little in his last show at the school there. So I went back to Athens, but I haven't been back to Chardon since right before I moved here.
Got it. I had a cousin that went to OU. Was I right about the Halloween parties?
Yes, I believe for a time, the Halloween block party was after Mardi Gras in New Orleans and New Year's Eve in Times Square. It was like the third biggest block party in the United States.
Right.
And the party sort of reputation began in like the late 80s and 90s. And then when I got there, it was a little subdued, and then because of the pandemic, like obviously it de-escalated even more. But I did my freshman year and then my senior year. I did a bit of I partook quite a little bit.
Well, anybody that's listening, they're the only ones that know about it, so your secret's safe with us. So when did you graduate from OU?
I graduated in May 2023.
All right, nice. So you basically you hopped over to the city a little over a year ago and booked your Broadway debut, bing bang boom, or like what was the transition? What was
Just
the
like
trans?
that. 1, 2, 3.
Right, what was the
Just
transition
get
like
that,
there?
ladies and germs.
Yeah.
No, so I actually never planned on moving to New York. Our senior year, the first half is the first semester of senior year for the acting program is all getting ready for stepping into the world. So you're doing your showcase, you're researching agencies and managers, and you're getting an idea of what it's like to be an adult, a theater maker, and if you really want to do it. And then the second half of the year is we did a project. So we would pick a city. I chose Chicago because I felt like New York was a little more intimidating. So, and also a lot of OU alums do work in Chicago. So I thought I was going to go there. and I researched every theater and agency and all these different places. I figured out how much it would cost to live, what kind of jobs I could work, and then I made this plan in which I was essentially just running away from the idea of living in New York because it was the only city that really scared me and intimidated me, in which I felt like I would really be challenged to the utmost I could be, which, while that is something I enjoy, it was a little daunting for me. And then I went to this place called Shakespeare Company. I had a full scholarship for their summer acting intensive, which was 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I fell in love with a bunch of people who all lived in Brooklyn. And I remember I was standing in the middle of lunch out in the front yard of where they housed us. And I was just stood in the middle of all my friends. And I was just like, I think I'm gonna move to New York because I just fell in love with all these people there, and everybody cheered and they like came around and gave me a big group hug, and I was like, okay, I'm moving to New York. So I moved to Brooklyn on a complete whim, and then I started catering for just every freaking hour of my life for 9 months straight, and then I got a call back in the middle of a shift, and I silently screamed before running chicken dinners and picking up pieces of broken glass. And then yeah, so after a very intense and exhausting 9 months, I am very lucky and booked my Broadway debut, which feels
Wow. Okay.
big to say.
Okay. So you're catering and you're picking up broken glass, and then you get an email or some type of notification that you got a call back.
Yeah, so we were working this like gala for um it was like an award ceremony for Black queer artists, and it was this really beautiful event. And so I was running dinners out to all these people, and the tables were so close together and the chairs were so big that you couldn't really get your way around the event venue without causing everybody to be mad and annoyed at you while they're giving speeches. So I was running out dinners and getting extra people forks and knives and picking up pieces of broken glass, and it was just insane. And I was I was sort of like, because I've worked in restaurants since I was, I don't know, since halfway through college, and I love working in a kitchen, and I love that sort of that rhythm and flow. And I don't like to really be still or stagnant when I'm working at a catering job, because it just, like, the more I'm doing, it's something to do, you know? So in the middle of this, I'm like sweating, I'm exhausted. My One of my bosses is like, "Hey, you just sit and take a break for like 5 minutes. You're sweating. It looks like you're really, really upset." So I go back to where we're all sitting, and I just pick up my phone, and I get an email from my manager. He's like, "Hey, guess what? You have a callback." Uh, or was it a callback or was it a second tape? It was a callback. They asked me for a callback, and without a second hesitation, I started bouncing up and down. I silently screamed, and then everybody was like, "What happened?" And and I was like, "I got my first Broadway callback." And just the fact that I had a Broadway callback in general was, I was over the moon. I was ready to burst out of the ceiling. Like, I was so proud of myself just for that.
Mm.
So so then, I had this just enormous wave of energy, and I immediately, that was like 30 seconds into my quote unquote break. And then I was just like, well, I got to do something with all this energy. So I went back out onto the floor, started serving drinks and bringing this one dude Negronis, and just went right back into it. And then the next day I had a call back, and yeah, the rest is the rest.
Okay, so give us a timeline. What month or when was this that you got this email?
Um, let's see. When was this? I don't remember. Let me look at my journal real quick. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I remember my callback was in early June. I want to say it was like June 6th or something like that. Um, let's see.
Of this year or last?
Of this year, it was
Okay,
only
okay,
big. I
okay. Yeah,
did
I was.
like the initial like mass cattle call auditions in April
Yeah.
26th. I remember I sent that, and then um, let's see, about a month later, like towards the end of May, I got a callback. I got asked to do a second tape, which I felt very proud of. So
Hmm.
I clowned around. I sent in some multiple takes of just being an absolute vulgar clown, just absolutely making a fool of myself, and they seemed to like it. And then I think it was like a day after that second tape. So it was like May 30th, I think was the callback.
Okay.
Um,
And then how many more times after that initial callback did you have to go? What was the process like before they said, "Hey, you booked it"?
um, well, the callback itself was actually really nice because, well, first I walked into the callback space and I saw a bunch of other Asian curly-haired men, and I was like, "Okay, what's up, family? Nice to see all of you. Nice to see
Uh-huh.
you all at the same place." And we were just chilling out, and I was just making jokes and making small talk with the people around me, trying to like, keep everybody calm and sort of get rid of any like competitive vibes or any of that kind of stuff because I hate that. I hate that when people try and make a callback space sort of like a competition. So I was just having a fun time with the rest of the people around me. And then I went into the callback and I met Sam and I met Taylor Williams, the casting director, and we did the initial take. We did one take where I came in with all my ideas and choices. And then Sam looked at my resume and he said, "You haven't been acting for a very long time and you've done a few Shakespeare shows. So just tell me about your experience with Shakespeare." And then we chatted for about 20 minutes about my journey with Shakespeare, about the reason I got into acting. And for 15, 20 minutes, we just chatted and we shared personal stories about, what Shakespeare means to us and people who have affected art in our lives. And then we did it again after that 15, 20-minute conversation. And then I heard back the next day. My manager called me and he said, "Hey, have you worked with anybody in New York?" And I said, "No, I just moved here." And then he said, "Okay, well, they are asking for some references uh, for anybody you've worked with in the past." I went, "Oh, that sounds promising. Let me send some people real quick." So I sent the information to I sent the information for my mentor, Shelley Delaney from Ohio University, and then I sent the information from my main Shakespeare teacher at Shakespeare Company, who is Sheila Bondabadai. Both are fantastic women, theater makers, leaders, and people who I've learned a lot from.
Yeah.
So I sent their information along, and then I believe I heard back on June 24th. I was I had just finished a callback for another Romeo and Juliet at ART, and I was sitting in the drama bookshop reading a new copy of Letters to a Young Poet by Rilke, and I was sitting across from this woman named Virginia, who I didn't know at the time, but I got a call from my manager, and I got my manager told me that I got the job, and I like a puppy, like I got the zoomies, and I like ran around in a big circle, and I sat back down. And then I told this woman across the table from me, who I didn't know at the time, I was like, "I'm gonna be on Broadway."
Yeah.
Uh, and I was in the middle of the drama bookshop, so like everybody's like quiet and like being very intellectual and just like looking at plays and looking for monologues and things. And I was just absolutely freaking out, shaking in my boots. And I had about 10 seconds of absolute joy before the realization set in that, oh, this is this is a job now. I got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's pause. So, when you were in the audition room, you said you shared with the casting director how you got your start in theater. How did you get your start in theater? Tell us that conversation on where this all began.
Yeah. So I have my first love within the world of acting was film. I loved watching films with my brothers and with my parents. Most notably, when I was a kid, was Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or any of those just like epic stories. And I would play even like Shrek. Like, I loved Shrek, and I would act along with it as it was on the TV when I was a little kid. And I would play around with sticks in the woods, pretending I was off on some adventure in Narnia. Or I remember I was one time there was this tree that had fallen in our yard, and so I would get on top of it and pretend I was Obi-Wan in the final duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan in the Revenge of the Sith, sort of on that like tightrope moment. And that was like the initial thing of wanting to be some sort of storyteller or just make something creative with all this energy, because I was a good student, and I could, without even trying, I could sort of get by on a B plus. Um, but I never really gave a shit about anything that I was learning. I thought everything was like cool in some way, but I just really did not care for any sort of educational career, and I thought I did, but I just never had that sort of outlet. But I took a bunch of art classes, and so like there was something fulfilling in there, but I didn't know what it was. Um, and also I had been bullied so much to the point where
Mm,
the way I hid it was I became sort of a caricature where I didn't show any emotion. I didn't speak. Even now to this day, like if I get up on a stage, I can speak with clear diction and articulate all my thoughts. But then if I'm in any other environment whatsoever, I still mumble through sentences, and I still am very timid in like group conversations. But regardless, I had this initial love of movies and just like doing something physical, and I got the physical fix by playing football in high school. So I joined the football team when I was a freshman, and I played offensive line, and I was making my way to playing middle linebacker, or aspiring to, before I got injured. I tore my ACL, LCL, MCL, and meniscus on my right knee, and that really like that was where my work ethic really began, because I found this new love for football, and I was more so, I think, the community part of it, of having these people to have this shared experience with. And so I had this fire inside of me, and I worked relentlessly to the point where I got voted on by the leadership. We had this thing called the leadership committee on our football team, that you were kind of like a representative for each year. They had a few people from each year. So you would speak for everyone on the team. So I got to be one of those members, simply because of how much work I was putting in, and I loved it, and I wanted to do it so badly. And then on my way to the next season, I tore my ACL again, because I was doing a box
mm.
jump. It was like I was really proud of myself, because it was a 42-inch box, and I got up there, and I was really, really happy, and I was so happy that I didn't think about coming back down. So when I landed, I tore my ACL again, and I was devastated, and it was another off season of putting in a ton of work. And then I asked for my parents to sign the waiver for me to play again, and they were like, "No, you've had 2 knee surgeries before you're even 20 years old. There's no way we're letting you play football again." And I was devastated, and I needed something to do. And by sheer coincidence, the only musical that I had ever seen in my life was Les Mis. I had gotten really excited for the Hugh Jackman movie, but my dad didn't let me see it because he knew it was bad, or at least just he was a very like he loves the original so much, and so he was not going to let me experience that.
Got
So
it.
he took me to see the live show first, and then I actually like I really like the movie, but that's forgive me for my sins. But so so my dad took me to see the musical when it had come out, and yeah, my high school was doing it end of my junior year, and so I was like, "Well, this seems like, something that I might really enjoy," because I did like the musical a lot. So I auditioned for the musical, and I was 200 pounds at the time, and I was just coming from working out to this audition room, and I'm in there, and and I was so scared. I was shaking, I was almost crying, peeing my pants. I was so out of my element. Being in front of anybody doing something vulnerable was so far from anything I had ever thought I'd be able to do. And then I sang "Can't Help Falling in Love" and barely got through it. And then after the audition, I sat down on my chair and I pulled my sweatshirt up over my head because I was so embarrassed. And then I somehow got in, and then I had my life changed because doing that show was just an incredible experience, and I made actual friends for like the first time in my life. And I was in it. I was addicted, and I never wanted to look back.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, cool. So that's your origin story. I love that. Wow. What would have come if your parents decided to sign the waiver and let you play football again? Maybe you wouldn't be sitting here with me. So it's funny how things work out.
I probably would have torn my other ACL.
All right, well let's fast forward. So you make the brave decision to come to New York, even though you were hesitating to do so. You have one of your first auditions that leads to a callback, that leads to your Broadway debut, and you're now in this rendition of Romeo and Juliet that is like something that we may have never seen. There's a music aspect to it. You're understudying. On the website, it doesn't specify the roles. So why don't you tell us the roles you're understudying, and then as a potential audience member, what could we expect that isn't the normal Romeo and Juliet that
Hmm.
we have known for these hundreds of years?
Yeah, so I'm billed in the playbill as Timothy O, and I am understudying Benvolio, Gregory, Abraham, and Balthazar, and I am also the dance captain and fight captain. Um, boy, oh boy, this production of Romeo and Juliet. The three words I would describe this production as are feral, violent, and horny. Uh, and it feels very much like that, embodied in all of the movements and the fight choreo and the text itself and the bodies that we have. Um, most of the people in the show are making their Broadway debut. Most of the people in the cast are like under 25. Um, and it is a very young production with a different energy than I think anything I've seen in a piece of live theater. It's yeah, feral, violent, and horny. If you really feel like the three words that just consistently come to mind. Um, I think Sam has had this idea of a bunch of kids needing a release from the chaos and misery and pain that exists by just witnessing what goes on in the world. And so he told us on the first day he had this idea of a bunch of kids who broke into Circle in the Square and decided that they wanted to put on Romeo and Juliet to find that sort of this catharsis, this release. And I think in every step of the production process, that's what's sort of been at the heart of all of it, and it's finding a release for all this pain and grief and suffering and confusion of growing up in this world and trying not to perpetuate this world that we inherit when we see all these fucked up things going on. And Romeo and Juliet sort of is that perfect vessel for finding that because you deal with so much. You deal with violence between two sides that it's sort of insignificant to this point as to why they continue to fight, and you have these people who are discovering themselves, discovering their bodies, and are so confused and just want to find what's truthful, find what's real, but at the same time, you have all of these just voices telling you to go by the exact contrary. And for Romeo and Juliet in particular, I think it's this interesting balance of these characters who are at an age where you're sort of burdened with all of the knowledge and the responsibility, but you have none of the power and agency of somebody who takes care of that responsibility of those pressures. So you're in this weird middle ground of knowing all this fucked up shit, but then having nothing to be able to do about it. And that is even like now, like as a 24-year-old, I still feel a lot of that. Um, so it is. I mean, it's it's very obvious as to why theaters all around the country are doing Romeo and Juliet in like this half of the year.
Yeah.
Um, so it is very much a release for the current time that we are in.
Mm. Tell us a bit about your fight captaining. So that's obviously a very physical thing that you're in charge of, that you're overseeing. Obviously, this being built for the stage, where we're training actors like athletes. Tell us like some of the physical requirements that you have as a cast throughout the show.
Sure, sure. So, our first whole week of rehearsal was led by Sonia Taya, our brilliant choreographer and movement director, and we would have the first half of the day would be the first like 3 4 hours of the day would be entirely movement conditioning, dancing, figuring out what our bodies can do, what sort of the movement language that we would use within this play was. And so it was like 3 hours straight of just dancing back and forth across the room and falling and jumping and leaping and holding on to each other and finding momentum and this trust within our bodies. And it was a big wake up call, even for me, who I work out 6 days a week. I've been an athlete, and um, I pride myself on being very fit and a dancer and a mover. And even for me, I was like, this is a lot. So it was conditioning from like day one. And then the fight choreo on top of that, led by Drew Leary, because it's in the round, you can't do sort of typical stage combat where it's all about sight lines and angles and
Mhm.
naps and all those things. So the fight choreo is it's scrappy, it's Krav Maga, it's grappling, it's throwing each other around, it's bloody, it's brutal and violent, and it's very in your face, it's up close. We're almost interacting with the audience members, and like they get the sweat thrown on top of them, and it requires a lot. And you can ask our PT Molly. She looks at sort of like the physical load that each of us takes within the show, and she's like, I've never worked on a show that requires more of movers in my
Mm.
life. And everybody has basically a full 2 hour track, because everybody's in the stage in some aspect, whether it's up on the catwalks or walking around behind the audience. Like, everybody's on stage the entire show. So there is no point in which you can really physically take a break, because it also has to be embodied, and you have to be with the story, and you have to be in service to it. And so basically, I'm helping keep track of every single person's 2 hour long track, making sure the fight choreo is safe, and that um, we do a lot of adjusting, and for the sake of our bodies, which are currently going through quite a lot, we're making adjustments. We're seeing how everything feels safe, and making sure that fatigue doesn't get in the way of us being able to tell this story. So it is brutal. It is tiring. It is lengthy, but it is worth it.
Yeah. So you open this Thursday, right?
We
October
after
24th.
24th, baby.
Yeah. Are you pretty much in a locked in show right now, or are you having little adjustments here and there as the previews are going?
Sam Gold told us on the first day. He said, "I will make adjustments up until the last week of previews." So we have still been moving things around. We still have been making tiny adjustments here and there, and Sam is still giving notes. But I believe going into this week, I believe things are being pretty set, and it is it is now in the stage where it is just finding our groove and getting ready for the proper run of the show.
Yeah. Okay, last couple of questions. You were referencing your journal. I'm huge on journaling and preach that to our clients over and over and over again. what does journaling look like to you? Is it a daily regiment where you're going to write something down no matter what? Is it by feel? How does a journal go into your life? How does that play out?
Hmm. Journaling for me has been a lifesaver. It is before I started going to therapy this past couple months. My journal has been sort of the place for this tornado of thoughts and ideas that never really go anywhere. It has been a place for them to go and to rest, so that they are no longer in my brain, so I can actually rest. I can process things. For the show, I write down 3 words for the day. I'll write down what we did that day, and I'll just write down some takeaways, just like one quick page. That's for rehearsals, but for my own personal life, it's where I put a lot of creative thoughts. It's where I am able to explore ideas that I don't necessarily feel comfortable asking somebody else about, or for an experience I feel like might not be super relatable to anybody around me. So my journal is my is the archive of my life. Like the one I have right now is it's basically like a memoir of my time since I moved to New York. And if I didn't have it, I think I would be pulling my hair out every second of the day, because
Mm,
there are so many things, and living in New York is so fast paced and chaotic and insane, that if I didn't have something to put this sort of like this buzzing energy that I have at the end of the day into, then I would, man,
yeah.
I'd lose it.
Okay, so okay, thanks for saying that because I hear to all of that. You said you're training 6 times a week. Is that still in the midst of this busy schedule you have? What does your training mean to you as a stage actor? And then what does it mean to you? And also, if you can give any encouragement to actors who maybe didn't have your sports background or your background in fitness, how can they kind of overcome that fear of stepping into the gym or a fitness facility for that
Mm.
first time, or maybe getting back to it after a bad experience? Yeah, if you have any light to share there.
Yeah, for me, I do a lot of weightlifting. When I started training in football, we did sort of Olympic powerliftings. We did cleans and jerks, deadlifts, squats, heavy lifts, and it was for me. It was just fun. It was dirty and gritty, and it was just a chance to just get out so much explosive energy that I feel like gets pent up as a young teenager. And since that time, after college and just as an adult, I think it is a place to challenge myself to my absolute limits daily. And it's something I do 6 days a week, every morning, and it's sort of a push pull leg, very bodybuilder esque. And it is just a daily practice of pushing myself to my limit, or listening to my body. And it's just sort of a way of telling myself that no matter how hard the day is, you can prove to yourself that you're able to go through it. So whatever
Hmm.
happens today, you've already challenged yourself to your utmost limits at this place. So whether it's something you see walking on the sidewalk, or you get told something at work, or you have like a 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. catering shift, like I did like a few months before I got this job. Uh, it's like no matter what, you've proven to yourself you can already get through this. So that's what I hold on to. That's why I kind of need it.
Yeah,
Um, and also like the endorphin rush, I just feel better. My body feels healthy. And for acting, that is so and for Shakespeare, which I feel like must be so deeply embodied, it's a way of listening to your body. It's a way of having control over your body and having agency, which I really really love. And for people who are thinking about going to the gym, thinking about stepping in the world of fitness, um, the biggest thing I would say is that um, a lot of the people I've talked to have mentioned feeling self conscious about being perceived by the other people there. And being embarrassed that you sit in a machine and you don't necessarily know how it works or what it's doing. And to that, I would say every person within that gym is on their own fitness journey. Some people may be more aware of it than others, and it may be more personal for some people than others. But every single person was at that point where they're like, I'm stepping in a machine. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just sort of lifting my arms in this crazy direction, and I think it's working. Um, and so it's a very vulnerable thing, just like me for stepping into that audition room for the very first time, being completely out of my element. And that's sort of the beautiful thing about it, is that it is a willingness to go on that first step, and it's a willingness to put yourself out there, and everybody around you is nicer and more kind than you are thinking, because
Yes, say it. Say
while
it.
people wearing like stringers and like taking off their pump covers and like flexing in the mirror, like they were like, I know sometimes for myself, I there was a period of time where I thought I was going to be a bodybuilder, and for myself, who's been up and down with my weight, I've had eating disorders and really treated my body horribly and very well at different parts of my life. Even when I was that guy, like flexing in the mirror, and I was really obsessing over how I looked, um, and I saw people who were very new and were, like you can tell when somebody's like finding their groove and trying to figure out what weights fit them and don't necessarily have like a training regimen. There's a lot of empathy that goes toward that person, and like there's also like a genuine cheer I have for that person in my heart, where I'm like, yes, I can see you are beginning this thing, and I really am rooting for you. And I feel like most people at the gym are rooting for those people, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I always like to compare it to like a singing master class or an acting master class when maybe it's a mixed group of beginners to advanced, and you have someone beginning on the stage, and the vocal teachers or the acting teachers bringing the student through something, and through the exercise they make a leap forward. Is it polished? Is it 100%? Is it amazing? Maybe not, but all the people that are out in that audience seeing that person take that stride forward are elated. They're so happy for that person. And in the gym, I believe that, like you're saying, the case is the same. And anyone that isn't feeling that way or is judging is an asshole, and the other experts are looking at them like an asshole as well. So like screw them. Keep going on in your journey. So thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it. TT, hey, amazing chat. Thanks so much for carving out the time when you're just about to open the show in just a few days. Really appreciate you. Thanks so much for being on the episode.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to
All right.
it's great to talk to people about fitness and our bodies and our mental health, and just the journey that it takes to be a performer.
Yes, 1,000%. We'll hang out. I definitely want to get your info, send you some thank you gear. Appreciate you. All right, everyone. Timothy O, aka TT, a part of the cast of Romeo and Juliet, opening on Broadway this Thursday. Make sure you run to the theater and support. I've already heard great things from people that have seen them in previews. So, hey, if you want a chance, you can also go to their website, Romeo and Juliet NYC.com. They're doing some floor seat in person rush or digital lottery tickets. You can check that out on the website if you're looking for a deal. If you can just pay the ticket, pay the ticket. Just get your butt in the seat and go support. Once again, I'm Joe Roscoe with Built for the Stage. Actors are athletes. If you want to try that free Broadway fitness program on our interactive app, you can do so. Kind of like what TT was saying, we have videos for you to follow along. I check over and review all of our client submissions. So if you want that tour guide per se in the gym, Built for the Stage is a place for you. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Later.